From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
President Donald Trump is headed to Arizona tonight, his first visit since last year. Supporters and protesters are getting ready. What to expect ahead of tomorrow's big rally.
And the president is threatening to use the U.S. military to close down the border as migrant caravans from Honduras head for the U.S.
Plus, out of the 84,000 people that have gone missing in the United States this year, 2,000 of those reported were in Arizona. We talked to forensic teams about tracking the disappeared. Next.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Samantha Lomibao.
And I'm John Cardinelli. Thank you for joining us.
More than a year after Trump held a rally at the Phoenix Convention Center, the president will be back, this time at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. The focus will be on endorsing Senate candidate Martha McSally and discussing his America First agenda. Reporter Jimmy Jackson looks at how people are planning for tomorrow.
Bikers for Trump and anti-Trump protesters are preparing for another rally in Arizona. Jim Williams has been a Riders USA member for 15 years. He says that the idea for Bikers for Trump came when he made a sign that caught the attention of other bikers. The reason they go to rallies, he says, is because in the past there has been a lot of protests and threats of protests of the rallies, and people were becoming afraid to attend.
You know, we stay outside to escort people in their cars if they want it, if they're afraid to walk to the car, because if there is protesters that they feel uncomfortable, we'll walk into their cars. We're basically there just to ensure the people that want to get in to see the president can do it without being harassed.
Last year, chaos during Trump's rally in Phoenix ended with police using tear gas to disperse crowds. Mike Roberts, a protest organizer on Facebook, wants to make it known that they do not welcome Trump's ideology and are encouraging people to get out and vote in the upcoming midterm elections.
Our opportunity to actually make change happen right now isn't about protesting. We're not going to unelect Trump or whatever. I mean, he is here to endorse Martha McSally, and so I would say, if you don't like Trump, then you probably aren't going to like Martha McSally.
This year, the ACLU filed a lawsuit over the Phoenix Police Department's handling of last year's rally protest, and they hope the Mesa Police Department will act in a better way. Communications Director Steve Kyler wants people to still report any wrong actions if they see it.
It's very difficult to challenge police actions on the street. It's much better to document as much of it as you can and challenge that after the fact.
Williams says he hopes the rally goes smoothly and acknowledged that protesters have as much of a right to protest as people have to attend Trump's rallies without fear of their safety. In Phoenix, Jimmy Jackson, Cronkite News.
Roberts says that he thinks Charlottesville had a lot to do with last year's rally chaos and does not think there will be as much conflict this year.
When President Trump was candidate Trump, he criticized President Barack Obama's use of Air Force One to campaign for Hillary Clinton. Trump asked then, who pays? So who is paying for Trump's trip to the Mesa rally? You are, at first, at a cost of more than $140,000 an hour for Air Force One. The president has to fly on Air Force One for security reasons, but political parties are supposed to reimburse for the parts of the trip that are political. Watchdog groups said those payments can be hard to track down and that it's often hard to clarify the blurred lines between political and official business.
President Trump threatened to shut down the southern U.S. border in a series of tweets this morning. The tweets come as a migrant caravan carrying almost 3,000 people heads up to the U.S. from Honduras. Trump tweeted that the leaders of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador aren't doing enough to prevent these migrants from coming to the U.S. border. The president said if Mexico didn't do anything to stop these groups, he would call the U.S. military to close the southern border.
In Washington, the president's proposal to use troops to close the border drew a range of reactions today, from the unfavorable to the impractical. Washington Bureau reporter Ian Solomon has the latest.
If this caravan of migrants makes it to the U.S.-Mexico border, they may face detention, or National Guardsmen, or, if President Trump has his way, the U.S. military. In early morning tweets, the president threatened to stop U.S. aid to the Central American countries the migrants are coming from, adding that if he had to, he would call up the U.S. military and close our southern border. That was news to the Pentagon, which said in a statement today that the Department of Defense has not been asked to provide additional support beyond National Guard troops already on the border. Congressman Raul Grijalva says additional military support isn't the answer anyway. He said in a statement that deploying military to the border is costly, ineffective, and does nothing to strengthen border security. Sending the military to the border did not work in April, and it will not work this time around. Immigration lawyer Eduardo Beckett says there is no policy to deter immigrants, considering what their alternatives are back home.
If you're from El Salvador and you know that you're going to be executed or you're going to be tortured or they're going to behead you, you're not going to care. You're not going to think about, oh, I'm going to be detained. You don't care. You're going to come. So the Trump administration's policies are never going to work.
In Washington, Ian Solomon, Cronkite News.
Many of the people we talked to in Washington saw the border threat as more of a political than a policy statement, saying the president is playing to his base. There has been no official response from the White House to the president's tweet.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo returned from Saudi Arabia last night following a meeting with the King and Crown Prince regarding the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Pompeo met with the president this morning and said Saudi Arabia promised they would complete a thorough investigation into Khashoggi's disappearance. The Secretary of State said he told President Trump that the U.S. should wait for the results of the investigation before taking any action.
I told President Trump this morning that we ought to give them a few more days to complete that so that we too have a complete understanding of the facts surrounding that, at which point we can make decisions about how or if the United States should respond to the incident surrounding Mr. Khashoggi.
Khashoggi went missing on October 2nd after entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The Turkish government believes the journalist was killed inside.
John Waddell, the 62-year-old man who fell 100 feet into a mine shaft, was pulled out early this morning after going 2 days without any food or water. Waddell's neighbor, Terry Schrader, told Waddell before he left Sunday he'd go looking for him if he didn't return by Tuesday. Schrader found Waddell in the mine shaft and quickly told police the rescue team arrived and lowered a medic into the shaft, then airlifted Waddell to receive emergency medical care. He had broken several bones during his fall. The mine shaft is about a 35-mile drive south of Aguila and is marked.
The actions of the folks standing here with me and many others who are not present saved a life yesterday in a very challenging circumstance that had incredibly dangerous dynamics.
Right now, Cronkite News is investigating the mapping and securing process for dozens of abandoned mines around our state. Look for our full multimedia investigation in the weeks ahead.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Coming up next on Cronkite News, a new grant will help one Arizona police department reach more victims of domestic violence.
And one community that has fallen on some hard economic times is helping their youth find not just a job, but a career.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
Maryville is a historic Valley neighborhood, but some of its areas have fallen on tough economic times. Cronkite News reporter Edgardo Lozoya attended a job fair that offered this local community the chance for a better future.
A group of local businesses got together offering thousands of available positions to those looking for a way to provide for themselves and their families. Nerves, along with a bit of anxiety and a lot of smiles, mixed together inside the Maryville Legends Event Center as hundreds of residents came with one goal in mind: finding a job. Among the crowd, Shemalar Mixon and her mother, Krishania.
I want to become a police officer, so I'm going to apply, and hopefully I'll pass.
Organized by several local organizations, including Chicanos por la Causa, 60 employers offered 5,000 jobs, providing not only employment, but the possibility of a better future.
And what we're really looking to do is not just offer people jobs, but career pathways into something that's sustainable, something they're passionate about, and something that can sustain them and their families.
And that's something this particular area in the valley needs. According to a 2017 analysis by the Census Reporter, the city of Maryville currently has over 130,000 residents, with Hispanics making up 82% of the population, followed by Anglos and African Americans. Out of the 64% that is eligible to work, almost 5% is still unemployed. Shalimar and her mother see opportunities like this job fair not only as a path to a job, but also a way for neighbors to help each other out.
I feel like it's more of the people in the community itself that brings everyone together for jobs.
Organizers say their goal is to help community members who may be going through tough times see that a future career is possible, no matter their situation.
Sometimes you might feel like, oh, I'm not qualified for a job, or I'm not qualified for an opportunity that was given to me, but there's people out there who will help you get qualified for that experience.
Not just job programs, but also training, schooling, and all the different services that are available that a lot of people in Maryville just don't know they have access to.
Never give up, no matter what.
Chicanos por la Causa says they've already provided 4,100 people with jobs within Maryville in the last year, and they're hoping to do even better numbers in the next 12 months. In the broadcast center, Edgardo Lozoya, Cronkite News.
Working together is bringing in more money to law enforcement in the Tucson area. The Tucson Police Department was recently awarded a grant by the U.S. Department of Justice for nearly $750,000. Reporter Micah Bledsoe spoke with the department and others in Pima County on this collaborative approach they are taking to tackle issues in their community.
Over the past 2 years, the Tucson Police Department, the Pima County Attorney's Office, and other agencies in the community have worked together to apply for grant funding to improve the community's response to sexual assault and domestic violence victims. More recently, they have focused on Spanish-speaking victims. 38% of Hispanic women in Arizona have experienced sexual violence at some point in their life, according to the CDC.
Currently, in the domestic violence unit, there are no Spanish-speaking detectives. Along with the sexual assaults unit, there's no Spanish-speaking detectives.
Amelia Kramer, Chief Deputy Pima County Attorney, says domestic violence is pervasive and extremely epidemic in her community. Those in her office, along with others, have been looking for funding to fix this issue.
We want to make sure that they can talk to a detective who is fluent in their language so that they can better communicate with the victim about what risk she or he is facing for future violence, connect that victim up with services to provide emergency housing, counseling, support, child support, legal services, those kinds of things.
The grant awarded to the police department will be used to hire and train 2 new bilingual detectives who will work specifically on these types of cases. It will also help to train 10 sexual assault nurse examiners at Tucson Medical Center in strangulation protocols and the use of medical Spanish.
And it's really important when the detectives go out and speak with victims to have that empathy and to build a rapport with them because something traumatic has happened. And a lot of times when you have someone translating from a detective to a translator, then to the victim, it kind of can get lost in translations.
On average, the Tucson Police Department responds to 26 calls per day relating to domestic violence. That's more than 9,300 calls per year. The Pima County Attorney's Office and Tucson City Prosecutor's Office prosecute, on average, 5,000 felony and misdemeanor domestic violence cases each year. Sergeant Petty says the department works closely with Emerge to better serve the community.
Our detectives work really closely with the advocates and making sure the victims have all the resources they need and have rides to court and essentially just have an advocate on their side to walk them through the process of how to obtain orders of protection and things of that sort.
Natasha Miniker from the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence says it's important to have culturally specific services.
And when people have experienced trauma, it can be helpful for them to speak to someone who speaks the same language as them, who understands their culture. It can help them on the healing process. It can create a safer space for them.
In Tucson, Micah Bledsoe, Cronkite News.
The 2 new detectives the police department select are expected to begin their new positions on the job prior to the start of January 2019.
There are over 84,000 cases of missing persons reported nationally this year, 2,000 of which were from Arizona.
Coming up on Cronkite News, ahead of Missing in Arizona Day, which is next week, we talk to forensic anthropologists about cold cases in Arizona. Next.
It's been a lot cooler here in Arizona, but expect warmer temperatures coming up this weekend after the break.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. The 2018 election season has arrived. Join us for primary and general election debates. Right here, meet the candidates and hear their positions. Arizona Horizon, your source for what matters most this election season. Only on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
A new health grant in Pima County will help reduce chronic diseases for at-risk children and their families. The one-year, nearly $763,000 grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention aims to help strengthen partnerships with schools and the community, organizations to reduce tobacco use, promote physical activity, and increase access to healthy foods.
A drug-resistant strain of salmonella is affecting some states in the U.S., but has not yet hit Arizona. Federal health officials have not been able to identify the specific brand of chicken associated with the outbreak. The CDC reported at least 92 people in 29 states have been infected with the strain of multi-drug-resistant salmonella after eating chicken. 21 out of the 92 people have been hospitalized. No deaths have been reported.
There are more than 200 people who are missing in Maricopa County, with some cases dating back to the 1950s. The 4th annual Missing in Arizona Day is on October 27th. Law enforcement will be on hand at Arizona State University's West Campus to take reports and gather information and identifiers from families of missing persons. Cronkite News reporter Holly Bernstein went to the Maricopa County Office of the Medical Examiner to find out how missing people are identified.
There's very different situations in which we have to deal with our own feelings and our own emotions. But these cases where families are looking for somebody that crossed the desert and they don't know what happened with them are probably the most difficult ones because there is no closure for many of these families.
Lillian Cordoba works with the Consulate General of Mexico. Her team is notified when remains of a missing person are found. Many of the cases she works with involve people who went missing while crossing into the U.S. from Mexico.
Many of those are not identified immediately or for long periods of time.
The Maricopa County Office of the Medical Examiner is raising awareness for missing people ahead of the 4th annual Missing in Arizona Day. Families are encouraged to bring photographs, medical records, and fingerprints of their missing loved ones. Forensic anthropologist Laura Fulgeniti works to identify remains from cases across Arizona.
My job is to develop a biological profile, including the sex of the individual, the age that they died, the height of the person, and then anything unique or individual about them that will help us identify them.
Remains of teeth such as these are another way that you can identify a missing person. Anything from a crown to a filling to an x-ray can be of help. Cordoba says identifying a missing person can bring closure to their families.
It's also hard because they cannot even see their relative for a last time. But at least they have a conclusion to their case, to their questions, and that gives them certain peace of mind.
In Phoenix, Holly Bernstein, Cronkite News.
A support group will also be held at Missing in Arizona Day for family members with a missing loved one, and a candlelight ceremony to honor the missing will be held at 3 p.m.
Some missing remnants of U.S. history turned up at an abandoned storage unit in Peoria. A man purchased the unit for $20, then found a collection of about 200 historical documents inside. The collection, which could be worth thousands of dollars, belonged to Henry Ellsworth Barber, a congressman from California from 1919 to 1933. It includes 2 letters signed by President Hoover, White House invitations from President Harding, and an invitation to groundbreaking ceremonies for the Golden Gate Bridge. The items will be sold at auction tomorrow.
So, Sammy, after a few chilly days here in the valley, today's feeling a lot warmer, isn't it?
Oh, it definitely is warming up. Let's check in with Micah at our Weather Center for our forecast.
It's going to continue warming up. This weekend, we're going to get 90 degrees. It's also going to have a slight chance of rain on Saturday and Sunday, and we'll also get some low temperatures throughout the rest of the week, low into the 60s. Taking a look at our evening planner, we can see that tonight, the lowest we will experience by 10 p.m. is 70 degrees. So it'll be pretty relative to what we're experiencing right now as the temperatures begin to decrease over the course of the night. High temperatures for tomorrow. Phoenix is expecting 86 degrees. So once again, pretty warm. Up north, that's not the case. Flagstaff, 51 degrees. So definitely want to have a coat on. This weekend is a great weekend for everyone to go to the Arizona State Fair. 90 degrees is what we're expected to reach on Saturday, which gives you great time to enjoy the weather before we experience a full winter ahead this 7-day forecast. Looking at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we can see that we will get that warmer temperatures. Moving on through the rest of the week, we will drop back down into average temperatures, and throughout the rest of the week, low temperatures for our low temps as well. In the Cronkite Center, Micah Bledsoe.
The Pac-12 is not only known for its great athletic performance, but for its innovative business performance as well.
Coming up on Cronkite News, a new data program that's helping Pac-12 universities fund their athletic programs and get sports fans to their games. Next.
The wrong one.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
Arizona State is known to be innovative, even in the sports facilities. Cronkite News reporter Taylor Rocha explains how Arizona universities use a business intelligence program to help raise funds.
The Pac-12 has been dubbed the Conference of Champions, not only for their athletic performance, but for their forward-thinking nature in the business space. When Arizona State University began renovations of Sun Devil Stadium in 2014, the athletic department tried to figure out things like ticket pricing, concessions, and perhaps most important, ways to maximize fundraising efforts for the project. ASU turned to mountains of data to find answers. The problem, there was just too much of that data and no easy way to pour through it.
We, along with USC, were two of the schools that already had data warehouses, essentially, where we stored all of our fan data. The problem with it is you couldn't really work with it or manipulate it or have visuals of it.
The Pac-12 answered with Domo, a Utah-based business intelligence program that gives universities tools to understand what the numbers mean. ASU was a pioneer of the program, which now extends to 8 of the 12 Pac-12 schools, including the University of Arizona.
The conference actually stood up and actually helped us create a way of taking on some of the costs and finding a way to help all 12 of the Pac-12 institutions.
While schools in the Pac-12 compete on the field or court throughout the course of a season, this business technology highlights the collaborative nature of the Pac-12, as athletic departments are eager to share key practices with their counterparts. This strengthens the Pac-12 as a whole.
Everyone's got problems. You know, there's not one school out here that's got the silver bullet that says, hey, we have every answer to the book. We have seats to sell, we have dollars to fundraise for, and everything that we're doing is ultimately kind of pointing in that direction.
Both Arizona universities said they are only scratching the tip of the iceberg in their utilization of Domo. The ultimate goal with all of these decisions, increasing revenue for the schools. Domo's impact expands further than the dozen individual universities. The Pac-12 uses this technology to boost ticket sales as they look to fill seats for the Pac-12 football championship game and the Pac-12 men and women's basketball tournaments. In the broadcast center, I'm Taylor Rocha, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.